So what I want to do is take you on a little walking tour around the local area rather than in the college. For those of you that cast back your mind to when you were on Mecklenburgh Square and you were living here and made your way down to the Brunswick Centre and to Lamb's Conduit Street. So here we go. Here we are now in Brunswick Square. Who remembers this square just in front of the Brunswick Centre? And in the middle of Brunswick Square is this amazing London plane tree, said to be the best example of a London plane tree in London. And of course, for those of you that know the story of Peter Pan, that's the wind that Peter Pan flew in from that tree into the window at the beginning of the story. And I don't know how long it was since the last time you came to the Brunswick Centre, but I'm just about to cross the road over to the Brunswick Centre now. And the Renoir Cinema is now part of the Curzon group, and it's the Curzon Bloomsbury is what it's known as, and it was completely redesigned and remodelled, and it's now their documentary. They do an awful lot of documentary screenings in this cinema, as well as the big, normal art house shows that the Curzons would normally show. But actually, it's really gorgeous inside now. Very kind of slightly brutalist architecture, lots of polished concrete. And I think it's got about 8 screens in it, including quite a few tiny little screens where they can screen kind of bespoke documentaries. And then there's a really nice cafe outside. This is what the Brunswick Centre looks like now. Quite mostly restaurants, and unfortunately during the pandemic, quite a lot of the shops in the Brunswick Centre have closed down. But there's still a good number of restaurants and cafes here. And go up to the centre of the Brunswick Centre. You recognise all those gorgeous flats above it, and there we go. This is what the Brunswick Centre looks like these days. Very redesigned, much nicer than it was all those years ago, and Waitrose is still at the end. And here we are outside Russell Square tube station. I'm slightly worried at this point that I'm going to have my phone snatched. One of the things that happens most commonly in this area, unfortunately, is motorcycle and bicycle phone snatchings, and unfortunately it does happen to everybody. It happens to college members, it happens to me, and walking along with a selfie stick is kind of probably one of the worst things that you can do around this area. But what I wanted to show you is we're at the back of what used to be called the Russell Hotel, named the Russell. If you've heard of the Russell Group of Universities in the UK, that was where the Russell Group of Universities was formed. The Russell Group is now longer known as the Russell Group. The Russell Hotel is now no longer known as the Russell Hotel. It's the Kimpton. But here we go, past the Friends in Hand, and what I wanted to show you was a new bakery that we have in this area, which is actually closed at the moment. So it's only open from early in the morning, and this is what's called the Colonnade behind Russell Square tube station. And there's a whole load of lovely new little kind of boutique-y shops that have opened down this area. But this, if you're here at 7 o'clock in the morning until about 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, is Fortitude Bakery. And going back towards the corner is something which is a really lovely contemporary arts space called the Horse Hospital. And the Horse Hospital is called the Horse Hospital because it used to be a horse hospital. So here we go, here's the Horse Hospital. So now I'm on Guildford Street, and there you can see in the distance London House. And we've got, next to London House, opposite London House, we have this new Centre for Research into Rare Children's Diseases, and that was part of Great Ormond Street Hospital. But what I really wanted to show you was this really new fun bar that we have right here in what used to be a Victorian toilet. And this is at the top of Conduit Street, if you remember where that is. The Institute of Child Health is just there. And this new bar is called WC because it is built in the old Victorian toilet. And so in order to get into it, here you go, down the stairs. And here we go, what fun. So these are actually the old urinals that used to be in the in the loo. I think the place was listed, and so they had to actually keep the old fixtures and fittings, and so what you can see is they've covered them in leather and then literally just put some seats in it and you know, a little table and chairs, and then you've also still got what used to be the old cubicles here as well, and all of the old tiling, and honestly it's such a fun place now, and right on our doorstep. It's actually the closest place that you could be, and I think this is Dan, probably the manager for the evening. Hello. And I've been in a few times, and I can promise you cocktails are really good, food is really good, and so yeah, you can see it's a really cute little place, just tiny and right on our doorstep. Oh look, you can see him in the mirror coming round. So here we are back upstairs, coming out of that bar, back onto Conduit Street. And how many of you ever spent an evening in here? The Lamb. And it's exactly the same as it always was. The only thing that they've innovated has been those few bar stools outside, which are new since restrictions lifted in the UK. And I am sure nearly every college member has made at least one trip to this Bloomsbury institution, which is Ciao Bella, of course. And you can still do a takeaway from there, so if you come and sublet your room for the night, and you can come in there and get pizza from Ciao Bella. Still, prices are still good, food is still good, it's still crowded. So you still need to book at the weekends, and you definitely need to book if you want one of those tables outside. But Conduit Street has changed a little bit in recent years. It's got much more expensive. Lots of really beautiful shops. So we have like Redemption Roasters here, which is a really, really nice coffee shop. And then a bit further up, you'll see the first example of very many men's clothes shops, very expensive men's clothing shops. And here's the first one, Mucci. I'm not really, all they seem to sell is men's evening wear, which I'm delighted to see that there are shops devoted to men's evening wear. There's plenty of shops devoted to women's evening wear. And this has been here for about 10 years now, the People's Supermarket. It's kind of okay. It's a bit of a limited stock, but I tell you what it does have is it has really nice bread delivered, freshly baked bread, and the Perseverance. And some of you, depending on how many on this call are really old alum, will remember it from what I remember it from in my first time of working in this area of London. The Rising Sun used to be able to do an amazing cellar tour of the Rising Sun. And again, unfortunately, during the pandemic, we've lost a few shops. This grey shop over here was an amazing bookshop called Persephone, which has gone now. Another one of those gentlemen's retailers. And there's a Barber's over here, and another shop called Folk again, which is well, that's men and women's clothing. And there's another branch of Oliver Spencer here, and then Albion Wine Shippers, which is where we get all of our wine for the G-Bar from. So we try to buy local. And then as we come down here, unfortunately Sigala has gone during the pandemic, And that's wine bar is now still the same sort of thing, but it's taken over by new people and called the Noble Rot Wine Bar. Very nice selection of wines. But the last thing that I want to show you down on Conduit Street is this great big new cheese shop called the Fromagerie. And not only do they sell cheese, but they have a cafe and you can order yourself an amazing cheese plate. So that's just on the corner of Conduit Street, and then this street is Rugby Street. And some of those of you that also like to frequent the bars when you were here will know that of course Conduit Street has the Rugby Tavern in it.